Well, hello, LifeBridge family. So glad that you could join us again this Sunday as we continue in our series, The Best Advice I've Ever Been Given. And we have a return guest, Kevin Daly. And so, Kevin, thanks for being back again. Just a few weeks ago, if you didn't get a chance, you really need to go back and listen to Kevin the first time. And when Kevin and I were preparing for this, and when we were having this initial chat about this whole series idea, he had a couple of different ideas. And so we're going to revisit one we didn't get a chance to share the last time we visited together. So Kevin, once again, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, great to be here, man. Great to be here. Great to be back. It didn't take a year this time. I must have said the right prayers or something. So yeah, thank you. It's a big deal to be trusted, and I appreciate it. So I'm thrilled to be back. Yeah.
Well, we're enjoying it very much. And last time you gave some profoundly impactful advice. And it was interesting. I found that even that week, I just kept going back to what you had shared in some of the stories. And I can't get the Winnebago out of my mind in that whole story. But I kept going back to some of what you shared and going, man, that is so core to how much I've been changed and how God has just done a work in me. Mm-hmm. And even in what in trying to lead and pastor and shepherd people, helping them to grasp, some of those concepts that just the truth that sets you free. Mm-hmm. And in our conversation, you said, well, there's this other thing. There's this other piece that profoundly impacted you. Another piece of advice you picked up along the way that I would love for you to share. And you gave me a clip of it, but I don't want to spoil it. So what's maybe the second best advice you've ever been given? And we would love to hear some more from you today.
Thank you. Yeah, so the best advice I've ever been given, lots come to mind. However, that first nugget was from a good while ago. And frankly, it's still a daily practice, a daily mindset that I need reminders of, as I go through every day, really, right, to be dependent on Him. This next piece, I guess I'm looking over. If you're wondering what I'm looking at a big plank, a massive plank. And I hope I don't wreck things, but this is just too good for me not to move out of the way and grab, okay? So, I hope I don't break anything, but I'm going to grab this. This is not in the plan. So, I am your Irish brother, if I haven't already told you. And so, I have the privilege of being the executive director at Broken Chains International, right, which is a marriage and family counseling nonprofit here in Atlanta, and I usually tell the ladies, look, can I shoot straight with you? They normally say, please do. I tell them, your husband needs a 2x4 upside the head. I'm not encouraging physical violence, but most of us just need a good plank upside the head. Now, math was never good for me in school, but I don't think this is a 2x4, but it is a plank of wood, and it will suffice to do the job for the illustration I'm reckoning, right? So this latest piece of advice, it's not very old, to be honest with you, and it's in Ireland when we were growing up. One way that we would say hello to each other would be, all right, ugly. All right, ugly. All right, ugly. Yeah, I'm not going to explain it because I don't really understand it, other than it was one way that we would communicate with each other. What I stumbled across over these last recent times is this. Anytime that ugly comes your way from the person that you are communicating with, it actually is not about you. It's about what's going on inside of them.
Right.
I don't know about you, man, but most of the time when ugly comes at me, when something that's mean or cutting or sarcastic or critical or full of contempt comes at me, I tend to want to get defensive. I tend to want to, I mean, that's my human automatic desire to, but what we talked about last time is normal humanity isn't what the Father came down here to earth, right, to call us to, yeah? Craig Rochelle wrote a book called Weird 'Cause Normal Ain't Working.
Right.
And yeah, whatever you think about the word weird, I would just say God has called us to something supernatural, not the natural. Right. And so in my Irish natural fighting kind of spirit, I want to push back against that. But when I stumbled on this thought, that when ugly comes towards you, verbally for the most part we're talking about, if you can create some margin, some buffer, and actually allow it to be revealing about how upset the other person is or how hurt they might be, and be quick to listen, as our brother Jimmy says in the New Testament, in chapter 1 verse 19. Yeah, he says be quick to listen. Yeah.
So when you're talking about somebody being ugly to you, and you're giving lists like mean, rude, or maybe even almost like I'm just imagining in my mind, bullies can come across this way, but sometimes just someone is rude, or someone is flippant, but it comes across as like it stings a little, or it might even hurt. And I can think back, there's certain people that I know historically, certain family members or schoolmates that I went to school with, that just had that reputation, and that's what they brought, the ugly. And when I saw them coming, you saw ugly coming, and you're like, oh man. And like you said, you had to gear up a little bit. Yeah. And it's hard not to want to dish that right back out. Yeah. So that's really good, actually, because it says, hey, we need to frame or contextualize who it is we're speaking about, right? My observation is actually about somebody who cares about you, all right? However, not everybody we interact with cares about us, right? Can you imagine that? Not everybody we interact with cares about us, but if we contextualize who it is we're talking to is really important, because we're either talking to a wise person or a foolish person or an evil person. Right. Yeah? And Proverbs, the book of wisdom, describes all three of them and tells us that if they're a wise person, they're interested in edifying you, building you up. They're not out to hurt you. They're out to kind of encourage you, invest in you. If you say something that is corrective of them, they thank you for that even, right? And Proverbs basically says, hey, your response, if you're interacting with a wise person, continue to talk, pour into them, let them pour into you. It'll be a mutually beneficial relationship, and all will be roses, pretty much, right? That is probably the smallest group, unfortunately, of the three. The next, probably the extreme of that is people who are in an evil space, right? So it's not that you're stuck in you're either one. You can change from these, but Proverbs describes a person who's evil as a person who is kind of getting off on hurting you. Right? And Proverbs says you don't even want to entertain a conversation with the person who's in that space, because they don't care what you have to say. They are only interested in their agenda, and they are happy about the pain that their behavior, their words, whatever, kind of dish out on you. So Proverbs basically says stay away, steer clear, and use the law if you have to. Wow. Proverbs says that. Yeah. Now the largest group, unfortunately, of people that we find ourselves interacting with are people stuck in a foolish state. Well, the Proverbs describes the fool or person in a foolish mindset as a person who does not really care about what you are thinking or what you have to say, unless what you have to say is in line with what they have to say, right? Proverbs says the foolish person will not appreciate your correction. They will actually turn it around and find a way to make it your fault, not their fault. Right. So they're not owning jack squats, right? Mm-hmm. And Proverbs says in your communication or your relationship with the person who's in a foolish space, Proverbs says, stop talking. Stop talking. For an Irishman to stop talking is a minor miracle, I think, in and of itself.
But stop talking when most of the time we think, I just need a different way to say it. I just need an illustration or something that they can relate to more, and then the penny will drop. The lights will come on.
So when you're talking about margin, and this is what you're talking about, it's like the ugly's coming at you. It's probably a fool that's coming at you with foolish things. And doesn't matter if you're giving out wise things back at them or how good your heart is towards them in return. But the wise thing for you to do instead would be, hey, pause. Don't keep exchanging with them.
Yeah.
It's interesting because you're bringing up that James verse that's talking about be slow to speak, even with this interchange. So unpack this a little bit more for us.
Yeah. I mean, the foolish person, Proverbs basically tells us the only thing they're going to respond to, if they respond at all to us, is going to be to provide them with a limit or a consequence.
Okay.
Right? Now, and that isn't continue to talk. It may be saying, why is it every time we talk about this subject, there's fireworks and they're not good ones?
Right.
That's not a normal dialogue. It's actually bringing them to the place of kind of breakdown and asking them about that. But for the most part, if they're going to respond at all, a limit and a consequence, pain basically is going to bring them to that place of maybe repentance or turning around and changing their ways. Sometimes my bride says to me, "Are you sure you want to keep going down this road?" Now, she doesn't say it with my accent, but I hear it that way. I mean, and it's really wise because it's giving me an opportunity. Now, if I'm in a foolish state of mind, I'm going to say, of course I want to go down this road. If I didn't want to go down this road, I wouldn't have started down this road when I'm in a foolish state of mind. But man, if I've got any ounce of grace or just spirit dependence in me in that moment, I am saying thank you so much. I was thinking it was a good idea, but now that you're saying that, maybe I'll give it a second thought. How did that come across to you? Right. So there's a question, because sometimes we're not aware about how we're coming across sometimes. So, because it makes sense to us. Everything that we think, everything that we say, pretty much everything that we do, for the most part, makes sense to us, but we assume it makes sense to the other person. So
yeah. So when I was talking about ugly people earlier, and talking about maybe people you encounter that are obviously have a reputation for that, but not necessarily the people you live with, you're saying, hey, actually where you experience this interchange the most within the context of your everyday family is where this really plays out. So like, if you were to play this out a little bit, like you just did, like you and your wife have an exchange like that, like even parent to child, and of course parents, we're trying to raise our children, and hopefully we're the mature one, but often, it doesn't play out that way. Yeah. But how does this play out even in those relationships?
Yeah. So first thought, I guess I would say is just in the male-female, right? And yes. So I know Melissa was on recently and talking a bit about male and female, the differences, and she's phenomenal on all of that, right? I mean, very basically, there's new research out about men and women. And the bottom line is that the research findings say that men and women are different.
Shocker.
I know, isn't that crazy?
Newsflash,
yes,
right? Yeah.
Yes, very different. In fact, how we fight, how we communicate, radically different. The lads want the facts so they can fix, right? Give me the bottom line, baby, right? So I can fix. The girls usually want to explore the topic so that they can experience rapport. Every communication or conversation, for the most part, for the ladies, is an opportunity for an emotional connection, And so lads we're fixers, generally, right? These are stereotypes, I realize that, but most of the time they kind of ring true. And so, that's important, right?
Yes.
It's not just is the person I'm engaging with, or I, in a foolish, wise, or evil kind of headset or mindset, but is the person you're talking to, one that's interested in the details. James says, be quick to listen. My granny used to tell me, Kevin, now God gave you 2 ears on your head to listen twice as much than you with the one mouth speak. I should say other things about my mouth and the size of it, but that's not for today's conversation. But James said, be quick to listen. And that's difficult for us.
Yeah.
The world over, I found it's difficult for us.
Especially if you want to fix things. Like I'm thinking as a guy, obviously, and you just want to kind of, like a quick fix. And that's not a great approach at all, so that you can be done with it and move on. And it's almost an impatient approach where you're not slowing down at all. You're not even giving it margin at all.
Yeah.
You're just jumping right in.
Yeah.
Hey, psh,
Yeah.
And then as a guy, I'm confused. Why didn't that work?
Right.
I just fixed it.
Right.
You should just do what I say, or
Yeah.
why can't you see what I'm saying? It's just like, oh man, it's not a good cycle.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We said last time, our behavior is driven by what we believe.
Mm-hmm.
And so even that little interchange that we all have experienced, and some of us have worn out the t-shirt,
Yeah.
Hush, will you, and just listen to me. If you would just listen to me, all would be well. And you might even be right, but what you're doing is you're minimizing, you're shutting down, you are saying what you think, what you say, where you're coming from is not important. And if we took a dad aside or a mum aside and we asked that question, is that the message you want to send to your kid? Or is that the message you want to send to your partner? The answer would be no.
Right.
Because our hearts, that's not. And so, in that context of being slow, we have to challenge, what do I believe? And what Jesus continues to do in our worlds is invade them and help us replace a current filter or perspective with one that is more true or healthier and ultimately more effective. Because you can be right all the way to writing them out the door. And what do you have? Well, you won. You won, but the relationship lost.
Right.
And that's the tough part. Belief drives behavior still in that. And so when we're shutting them down, cutting them off, we're thinking, I don't need to hear any more from you. And I know what's best, or I know the right answer. And so you hush and let me declare.
Yeah. And I've experienced so much of this on the wrong side of it, myself. My dad's words are echoing in my head, even though you're right, you're not right sometimes. It's like if your approach, in your exchange, your body language, and that's why the brilliance of what we read in Scripture of listening is so profound. Slow to speak, slow to become angry, but we're so quick to go in that other direction. So impatient with the other person. I love what you said about how that just affects them and minimizes them, makes them feel small, makes them feel unimportant. A child, especially in an interchange with a parent, I can just imagine, they already feel that because they are physically smaller. Mm-hmm. They are inferior in those sense, but yet how much that can just devalue and just breed insecurity in them, just with that constant, critical, quick approach, without taking the time to actually listen. Especially I could see how that plays out in a marriage relationship, and how, man, the power that we have in our words in a negative way, but the power we have in our listening in such a positive way. To go, oh, man, how much that blesses the other person. So take this a little bit further. Where in Scripture do you see this illustrated, or where in life could you take this to another level?
Yeah, I mean, it begins with listening. I'm not sure if it was here last time where we talked about, look, if you want to really love somebody, then it begins with listening. The 4 letters, I mean, it begins with listen, right? And if I asked you, do most people listen to respond, or do most people listen to understand? What would you say most people do?
We listen to respond.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
And so James is saying, no, we have it backwards. And so I want to encourage you, James is saying, to listen so you can really get it, right? Like, how many times have you been told, you don't get it? No, you haven't been told that very much, I'm sure. I'll just tell you from me, okay?
A couple days ago, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You don't get it. If I never heard that again, right? You just don't get it. Well, the reason why we hear that is probably because we're finishing people's sentences. We're guessing their words for them, right? We're finishing their words for them, and we're not being slow or quick to really hear. Stephen Covey wrote a book called, I think, 7 Habits or 5 Habits of Highly Effective People.
7 Habits of Highly Effective People, yeah.
Yeah, in there he says one line, it's number 5, I think, and he says, seek first to understand, then to be understood.
That's right.
No! I want to be understood first, and then I will seek to understand. And the problem is, most people do. So who's going to be the hero? Right now, we have a need for people to be heroes in their home like never before. Right now, we are in very close proximity to each other more than ever before. Our kids are needing us to model, to exemplify, but we can't give what we don't have. And so Jimmy, like thousands of years ago, but God's like, kids, you need this today. You need to practice today. You want to love better? You want them to listen to you? You want them to look up to you? I confessed to you about my anger last time I was here. James says, how do we unpack this more? James says, hey, be quick to listen and understand them first, and then be slow to speak.
Yeah.
Like late to speak is the idea there. And I've kissed the Blarney Stone like at least twice in my life. Okay? Now, for those of you who might not have yet heard, the Blarney Stone is in a castle, in a ruined castle in Ireland, and you have to climb up. The walls are still there, but like somebody holds you as you lean backwards over, grab a railing and kiss this Blarney Stone, which, by the way, if you do, you will receive the gift of eloquence.
Oh.
That's what they say. The only problem is, I think when I kissed it the second time, I got a double dose, and sometimes this mouth doesn't know when to shut up. Aaron. So the Blarney Stone. I never found another stone that helped you get the gift of listening. I think James says, be quick to listen and slow to speak, because, again, it needs to be rooted in when you want to jump in, when you want to answer, when you want to solve. Really what's needed is to ask questions. Is somebody has said, a great answer has never been given for the want of a good question.
Man, that's fantastic. So if you could just offer a little bit further on this whole question thing, what are your go-to questions that really help you understand someone? You're in this exchange, and God has graced you in the moment with patience, and you're really, really being led well by the Spirit, and okay, I got to pause here, I got to listen well. What are a couple that you just go, man, I really can go to these couple of questions really help me understand? Yeah. First thing, before the questions, is to say this. I want to tell you, bro, and I want to tell you listening at home, I want you to say this out loud, and if you're with anybody, then I want you to say this to them. But if you're not with anybody, then I want you to hear me say this to you. You are a brilliant communicator. You're a brilliant communicator. Most of us growing up weren't told you're a brilliant communicator. We were told, shut up, sit down, eat your dinner.
And one of the very common phrases to me was when I was up climbing all over the place, my mammy would say to me, if you fall off that wall, don't you come running to me. And I would often think, if I fell off the wall and broke my leg, don't come running to me. I couldn't run. Sometimes she'd say, shut your mouth and eat your dinner, will you? And I'd be like, how can I shut my mouth and eat my dinner at the same time, mammy? I don't understand. There's logic. So it had nothing to do with our conversation other than to say that the things people say, seriously, I'm going to need your help. Clarify the content. The questions. Yeah. I should just answer the questions.
It's your phone.
The questions that I ask are, can I tell you what I'm hearing you say? Or can I tell you what I just heard you say?
Okay.
I have never been told no. When I ask, can I tell you what I'm hearing you say right now? It's not an offensive question. Now we want to make sure the tone of voice is
right.
open, right? That's been really, really helpful. If I would say this, if you're the one communicating and you notice a change in body language, facial expression that wasn't what you were looking for, I would encourage you to ask, hey, will you tell me what you just heard me say?
Oh, that's good.
So it can go either way, right?
Right.
And it can help, cut the conflict like straight away. And again, we're all listening through a filter.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
And so I mean, Ephesians 4 says, look, let all bitterness and wrath and malice, like get rid of it all, right? And so that's really important to make sure the filter has been, taken care of. But assuming that that's happened or we're on the way to doing that, one question is, hey, there's a river between you and I, the person you're talking to, and inside that river there are rocks, and those rocks are nuggets of gold. And the nuggets of gold, Aaron, are emotions. What the other person is feeling. A lot of times we think that the conflict or the communication that's kind of gone awry is because of the topic of the conversation. Well, the topic of the conversation ain't what's going on underneath the surface. It's like an iceberg, right? You see a little bit up above, although sometimes it's pretty big, but there's a massive amount going on underneath. And it's what's going on underneath the surface in the other person that you're communicating with where the real root of the issue lies, not whether you came home at 4:30 or 4:05. And we argue, no, I'm telling you it was 4:05 when you said you'd be home at 3:45 or whatever, right? And we think that if I minimize the facts, it's never about the facts. I mean, again, I want you to say this out loud. The fight is never about the facts.
The fight is never about the facts.
Awesome. The fight is actually about the feelings and about the messages that you are sending to each other. And you're just using the facts to send them. So it's about like, what do you want to send to the one that you love, the one that you care about, the one that you're seeking to connect or communicate with. So I would ask, it sounds like, I would encourage you to clarify the content first of all, and then reflect the feeling. Number 2, reflect the feeling. And this is the question though. It sounds like you are sad.
Right.
And the beautiful thing is, all the lads right now are saying, Daly, you didn't go down the emotion road. Like, I'm no good at the emotions. Stop, will you? Stay away from that. No, here's the beautiful news. Whether you're a lad or a lady, the beautiful news is you don't even have to be right. You just have to be sincere.
Oh, that's good.
When you ask, how are you feeling this way? Because even if you're wrong, most people pretty quickly will tell you how they're feeling.
Yes.
If they know.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So I could see how, man, this could really be powerful in a marriage. In really, I love that illustration of the river. I mean, that is such a great visual of the flow of communication and this huge gap and chasm with the rocks, the gold nuggets in between of emotion. I can even see how this works even with children, parents and children, to take the time that your child actually feels listened to. Wow, how profoundly powerful that is for your spouse or for your kids. How loved I imagine they would feel and respected, that they would feel just by simply identifying with them, I'm hearing you, like, I think I'm beginning to understand you, but I'm starting to identify how you feel about this. Now we're connecting.
Yeah.
Now we're understanding.
Yeah.
So if that's where it starts, where does it go from there?
Yeah. You know, I think that process of just clarifying the content and reflecting or kind of guessing what they might be feeling, right? Because again, your belief may drive your behavior, but your beliefs are all messed up in there too. And when you name them, the person feels understood. Yeah, they start to say, even if they never say it to you, you get me, right? And what happens is their spirit starts to open to you, right?
Oh yeah.
But when you don't seek first to understand, then and they're kind of getting the message, you don't really care about me. You only care about you and your rightness or whatever, right? And so when you are intentional about asking Father to give your ears a hand to listen and to really understand or really get, and if you don't get it, it's okay. You keep asking questions. So what you're saying is, no, that's not what I'm saying. Oh, okay, thanks. Would you say that again? Right. Here's another question. I really want to get to where you are. I really want to understand. Can you just help me with this piece, because I'm not understanding this piece. But I will say this. That there was a long time in my story where if I didn't understand it, if I didn't see it, if I didn't get it, then I didn't believe it. I didn't accept it.
Yeah. Which can be really rough on the receiving end of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I said, something's wrong and it's not with me.
Right.
Yeah.
So if we're on this journey, and obviously this is going to take some practice. I mean, this isn't something that most of us get modeled for us well.
Yeah.
Most of us, like this is, it takes incredible courage to even want to try. And then it takes a lot of practice to even, because you're emotional in the moment to even have the thought, oh, wait a minute. I'm supposed to try to pause here.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
But let's pretend though that I actually try it.
Yeah.
And
no, we're not pretending, dude.
Yeah.
You're going home this
week.
You know
what I mean?
And the same thing's going to happen last week.
Wait a minute.
Yes.
You're okay, I'm going to give that a shot.
Yes.
What's the impact going to be?
Oh my goodness. Yeah. First of all, I want to say this. I want to say to remove the misnomer that it takes forever, a month of Sundays, as my father used to say, to kind of get breakthrough. You can have a win this week. You can have a win today. One tool that we use is a 5x5 tool. Get 5 feet from the person that you're talking to and listen to them. Undivided attention for 5 minutes.
That's doable.
Give him your... if that phone rings, don't you even twitch. Don't you even reach for that thing. I will cut the hand off of you. I'm sorry. I won't cut the hand off of you. I'm hearing mother say that to me. Don't you reach for them bickies. Anyway, so 5 feet, 5 minutes, undivided attention, eyeball to eyeball, at the end of which most individuals or couples say, what do you want?
That's right.
What are you after? And you don't even tell them you're practicing a tool that your Irish brother, and where are you from?
Indiana. Yeah.
And your Indiana brother, encouraged you to practice. Yeah. Don't be telling them that. Just do it and watch what happens. There will be dividends this week. But yes, to remember and to make it part of your DNA, to have muscle memory, you got to do it again and again and again and again and again. And again, tools on top of an unhealthy foundation ain't going to last you long. So I'm going to go back to the last session that we had together. Yep. and make sure that your foundation is spirit dependent, right? Because in our flesh, we're going to want to be understood first before understanding, right? So all that to say, I forgot again. If that was the question or what, yeah.
So we're talking about how it's going to impact the relationship.
Yes.
Even that 5 minute.
Yes.
We practice that 5 minute.
Yes.
What's going to change?
Yeah. First of all, the people in your world are going to feel heard. Like, do you know how few people actually feel heard? Like, we have a big team of coaches and counselors, spiritual directors, abuse recovery workers. There are so few people who feel really heard or understood. So few. So when you pour into that chasm, I mean, it is noticed, is what I'm saying to you.
Right.
Just by not cutting them off or interrupting them and shutting your mouth. I mean, even David was a friend of God, and even that fella said, God, put a watch on my gob. Like, what was the word? Put a guard, a gate, I can't remember. But it was something like put a lock on this thing. Like, I don't know if there was a Blarney Stone where he grew up, but like, I relate to that fella, you know? But when you don't do that, like, people don't know what to do when people don't interrupt them.
That's powerful.
Your children will feel loved better than you loved them before. They'll feel heard, they'll feel more secure. They'll feel like, actually, their opinion matters. Because here's the deal. If you don't do that, if you shut them down, and I have 2 chapters. I have 2 massive chapters, or halves of a book, I think, so far in my parenting relationship with my kids, and I want to share that with you. But if you don't commit to doing this with them, then the legacy you are going to leave is they're going to grow up, and they're going to get married, and they're going to believe in their marriage that their opinion does not matter. And they will do one of 2 things. They will either shut down, because that's what worked for them to survive, or they will rise up and say, I will not let anybody ever shut me down again.
Right. And both are horrible.
Yeah. So the opposite, that's the cost if you don't. If you do, it's the flip. There's maturity, there's health, there's growth, there's connection instead of disconnection, there's unity instead of disunity, right? There's one accord instead of discord, right? Beautiful.
And I can imagine, especially we're going on this parent-child path as well. They're going to want to come back, because, like, when I look at my life, I go to the people who listen well to me. Like, I love visiting with the people who live well, who listen well, because I feel so loved by them, and I'm going to keep going back to that well. Not to wear it out, but because it's safe.
Yeah.
It's life-giving.
Yeah.
And and there's so much of a void of that in this world. Yeah. You really get to position yourself as that lovingly influencer in their life, like they're going to keep coming back to you.
Yeah.
Whether it's your spouse or your children, or other people that you're trying to love well.
Yeah. For too long, man, I ruled with an iron fist for too long in my home. And I will never forget the day. There were many days. I'll never forget one of the latter days. Many days where I can I get a do-over kind of a thing. I got angry, I got loud, I didn't be quick to listen and slow to speak, and etc., right? And I remember there was one day when I said to one of my boys, and we have 3 of them, so I'm not giving anything away. Debbie was upstairs, and she says, hey, blank name, come up here and help me with the laundry, will you? And he sat on the couch, and I'm sitting on a chair over here, and I'm just looking, I'm like, yeah, I'm thinking, oh no, you didn't, right, in that moment. I'm like, I mean, any second now he's going to get up. The black guy didn't get up, so I probably should have waited just a little bit longer, but I got up, and I went over to him, and I would have liked to, in my version of the story, I would have liked to have said, I gave him one more go, hey, go upstairs, Mom just called you, not here. But I don't think I did that, because I knew he heard. And so I went over, and I grabbed him by the shirt, and I pulled him up by the shirt and the arm, and pulled him up, to where the momentum was coming. Now, this was right around the time where he was a little bigger than me. When your kids get a little bigger than you, it's time to reevaluate your parenting process. Let me just tell you. It wasn't but months earlier, like we were mess fighting, really mess fighting, and he got me an uppercut, like right there, and I didn't realize it in the moment, but he broke a rib, right?
Okay.
Yeah. So in that moment I said, all right, that's enough, I don't want to have to hurt you now. I don't want to have to hurt you. Off you go. So this is a couple of months later. I think I had healed by then. But as I lifted him up and pushed him towards the stairs, he thought it'd be a good idea, instead of going to the stairs and going up the stairs to help it longer, he thought it'd be a good idea to come back at me. Yeah, he did. He came back at me. He came back at me. And now I'm thinking, seriously, that was a bad move, kid. So, in my multitude of wisdom, I decided my best plan of attack. Do not do this. This is how not to do it if you're at home. I got him in a headlock and began to drag him towards the bottom of the stairs. Now his little brother and his little sister. Oh! Anyway, and that moment, Dad would come down the bottom of the stairs, she'd come around the stairs and she's like, what's going on?
Right.
Like, dude, what are you doing? You got physical. What do you tell your kids all the time? The moment you get physical, you've lost the argument, you know? And in that moment, it was almost like God whispered in my ear, son, you are free to continue to parent your kids this way, but you will lose them and it will not be effective for you.
Wow.
And something clicked, man. All I know to tell you is something shifted in me. I know it was a belief, but I couldn't have articulated that moment. I just knew something shifted in me. And from that moment on, there was the quick to listen, the slow to speak. I was quick to anger is what I was, right? And it was, you know, James says the anger of man does not produce the righteousness of God.
Right.
And that was being exhibited. I was passive. I was disengaged. I had kind of given up. I'd surrendered my role. I abdicated my role to some degree because I thought I couldn't be successful. Because whatever. I mean, there were beliefs there, right, that were driving. And I think something shifted in me that day. And my brother, the second chapter began. The second half of the book began, to where I began to learn and believe that because he changes us. I mean, really,
right.
He's the great physician, right? And the healer of our hearts and the lover of our souls. And so he began a journey in me that now, today, I have wonderful conversations with my kids where thankfully I didn't do too much damage to where I lost the plot. And I'm telling you, I was close. I'm telling you, I was close. In fact, and a couple of my kids, I mean, they had seasons of kind of prodigal seasons, right? But praise God, you know, they came back. But just because we do this for a living doesn't mean we haven't had chapters, seasons, periods, right? Where belief was driving behavior and we were paying a cost for not obeying and applying that verse right there.
That's powerful. And that's powerful application and powerful truth. If you were to close out and to just wrap this up and say, hey, here's my closing thought. This has been phenomenal. I mean, this is really useful, practical, life-changing for families, marriages, friendships, you know, even repairing old relationships. But what would you want to close with today? What would you want to leave everybody listening today with?
What we're talking about is supernatural. It's not normal nor natural, right? Now, you cannot know Jesus and practice some of these, and you will reap from them hugely, for sure.
Right.
But when temperatures, you know, get hot, the natural is defensiveness, right? I would say stay away from 4 red flags to close this. I would say first you clarify the content, you reflect the emotion or the feeling as best you can, right? And God will be right there with you in it, and you can win at this. I promise you can win at this. I used to think I was good with emotions. I was lousy with emotions. Right. You clarify the content, you reflect the feeling, and then you stay away from the 4 heads of the apocalypse. That's what you do. And the 4 heads of the apocalypse, or the 4 red flags, whichever you prefer, are criticism. Criticism. It doesn't help. It's cutting. It's demeaning. It's minimizing. Diminishing, right? It's not going to help. Like, let no corrupt communication proceed out of your mouth is what Ephesians 4:29 to 32 talks about. Defensiveness. Oh my goodness, defensiveness only escalates conflict. It never de-escalates conflict. Last time we talked about you have nothing to defend. We have nothing to defend if we understand our identity and where it comes from and whose we are. There is nothing to defend anymore. So that when ugly comes your way, you can actually be present and you can pause and you can ask questions about what's going on inside you to make you behave that way. Although we're not asking that question, we understand it's not about you, it's about what's going on inside of them. Stay away from criticism, stay away from defensiveness, stay away from contempt. Contempt is different than criticism in this way. Contempt is kind of toxic. It's lethal, actually, to a relationship. It's like you're diagnosing the problem, right? The reason why you're always late is because you're so irresponsible and immature. Last time any of you that's been effective for, like the person that you said that to, said, you're so right. I am incredibly immature and irresponsible. I don't know how I didn't cop that sooner. Come to me, find me. You know how to find me, and tell me that's happened to you. Contempt is like sarcasm, the eye roll, the exhale, the way to go, Einstein. That was a smart move. Like it's really not good. Contempt. Stay away from contempt. And the fourth one is stonewalling, which us lads are common to do, but the girls can do this too, right? The ladies can do this too. Just shutting down, being physically present but absent emotionally. And there's just no life in that. There's no life in that at all. I have a friend, I'll finish with one little quick story, yeah? I have a friend and he's married to a girl, loves it to bits, but this girl loves how she keeps her home, I mean, she likes to keep her home so much so that she cares which way the pile on the carpet is facing.
Yeah.
Like when you vacuum and well, yeah. So he was having the lads over one Friday night, and they came over, and he didn't give them any napkins or plates when he was giving them some cookies. And his wife came around the stairs and noticed that this was happening, and she disciplined him with her eyes. That's happened to me. I'm sure that's never happened to you, but she, any man who's been around for a long time, or at least a while, will know what it's like to be disciplined by a lady's eyes. And in that moment, instead of receiving her, he took a cookie and he broke the cookie and the crumbs went all over the ground.
Oh no, he did.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did. And bless her heart, in the best possible way, she said nothing to him. She just turned around and went up the stairs. And he looked at the lads and he said, lads, I think our boys' night has kind of been cut short. I need to go sort this out. And that was great, actually, that he did that sooner rather than most guys would just leave it like, she'll get over it. She won't get over it. It'll be buried. If she's not talking about it, that doesn't mean it's sorted. It's still there waiting to be dealt with some other time. Or it's piling up a dam waiting to cause worse issues later, yeah? So he goes up the stairs and he goes into the room and they start into it, and everything in his being wants to bolt out the door. And he says this, he shoots this flare up, and he like invisible flare, and he says, God, send angels to guard that door. Do not let me leave this room until we've got this sorted. You see, God hasn't called us to be right to the other person, right? We care about being right and having freedom in it. He's called us to be right with the other person.
That's so powerful.
And this guy was in the dark, and there was no light coming. When you've been in those arguments where there's just, like, it doesn't seem like there's any light of day, and he just kept at it. He just persevered, and he tried to listen as best as he could. And none of us are perfect at this, but it's not about perfection. It's about progress. It's about taking imperfect action and trusting that Jesus will show up. And Jesus showed up in that room for him. The light came in, and a new day dawned. And he wrote a song afterwards called "Love Is Not a Fight, but It's Something Worth Fighting For." And his name is Warren Barfield.
Wow.
Look that one up on YouTube. Love is not a fight, but it's something worth fighting for. I would love to send you or your clan tools about how to listen better, about the wise, the fool, and the evil, just to help right now in this time apply these tools. And so later on they can pop it on the screen. Absolutely. Or whatever.
We will do that.
Just text the word listen to 678-608-2111, and I'll send you these tools probably tomorrow.
This has been one of the most powerful talks I've ever heard, and I am so grateful that you shared some of the best advice you've ever been given. That's some of the best advice I've ever heard in my life. I hope that you will rewatch this. I hope that you will share this with some of your friends and family, but most of all, that you will apply the truths that you heard Kevin share, especially just rooted in that James verse, that it will, I believe, will change your relationships. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
This is fantastic.
Amen.